Hello, welcome back to the Burn, Fat, and Feast podcast. My name is Sarah, your host. I am honored today to be joined by David Bernstein. Now, I will let him introduce himself in just a moment, but you guys are in for a treat today because we are talking about his Power of Five formula. And there are five things, all starting with S, that we will dive into in a moment. And so you want to listen through this entire episode today to walk away with strategies to help you with not only your physical well-being, but your mental well-being. And I think at this point in time, after 2020 and all the things that have changed in our lives, that we all see that the mental well-being is just as important, if not more, than our physical well-being. And so he ties all of this into his Power of Five formula. So, David, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. It's wonderful to be here with you today.
So happy to have you. So thank you again for your time. I know that time is valuable for all of us. And so I appreciate you being here and sharing your expertise with us. So David, can you just give us a little bit of a rundown of who you are, what you do? I know there are so many things that we can talk about here.
Well, thanks. I grew up on Long Island, New York, the son of a World War II veteran, combat wounded World War II veteran who taught me about determination and inspiration. My mother was a stay-at-home mom who raised us and became a caregiver for her parents, my grandparents, who didn't get particularly good medical care. And she encouraged me to be a doctor, and she told me to be a good doctor and be good to my older patients. And I decided to become a geriatrician. I also decided that I wanted to write books and share my thoughts. And I was really motivated to be a geriatrician after seeing the January 1973 cover of National Geographic, where there was a centenarian. I learned the word, I learned what it takes to live to be 100. And I've always tried to emulate that and teach that to my patients and learn from them about the pitfalls and how to do that. So that's what I've incorporated into my post work or secondary life or re-inspirement to help people live their best life, healthy life, and do it simply.
That's perfect. And it falls in line with exactly what we talk about on this podcast and exactly what we talk about inside our Burn, Fat, and Feast membership. So I cannot wait to dig in. Okay, so let's go ahead and start talking about this formula of yours. It's called the Power of Five formula. And kind of walk us through, is there a starting point or do we just try to incorporate all these things? I'll let you give us the rundown there.
Well, the first thing I would say is everything needs to be kept simple. As a physician, if I gave people too many things to do, no way it got done.
Right.
And I even learned that from one of my professors during my residency. He said, if you're going to make recommendations, even to doctors, they can't carry out more than 5 tasks. So I've always limited to 5. Everything I do is 5. And then as I put together my first formula, one was called Grace, and then this one is the Power of 5. But with the Power of 5, I made it so they all begin with the letter S. So there's no excuse. You can remember 5 things that begin with the letter S. And in answer to the other part of your question is you can dive in and do all 5 or pick one at a time and add on. One of the things I know you stress with your clients is the importance of intention, that all of these things require intention. They're not going to come to your house and knock on your door and say, now it's time to sleep, and now it's time to do this and that, and exercise and walk. You really have to plan for it, keep a journal, any of those things, and a buddy, an accountability partner. They're all really important. But here's 5. I'll say them quickly and then go into detail.
Yeah.
Sweets, stress, sleep, sweat, and sex. And so we've decided beforehand I was going to focus on 3 of the 5. So I'm going to get the first 2 out of the way because I think those are ones that you deal with a lot. And so it's sweets. Sweets is my euphemism for diet. And I avoid, and you probably avoid using the word diet.
Right.
I talk about lifestyle.
Yes.
And I mentioned to you as we started, I had just come from Spain and Portugal and the Middle East. So I recommend a Mediterranean diet. So it was lovely going over there and seeing how they follow their Mediterranean diet. So it's a diet that's whole food, plant-based, low in fat, but and higher in protein to build muscle, because that's really one of the things I think we have trouble with in this country.
Yes.
And also, and I can't stress it enough, the importance of eliminating or reducing processed foods, because processed foods have so much sugar in them, and they're hidden sugars, and that's a real roadblock for people.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think the second one is sweat. And sweat is my euphemism for exercise and being physically active. And getting back to the sweets part, the sweets and sugar create blood vessel problems and cause vascular disease, heart disease, cancer. And that's kind of how my whole formula rotates around the three things that challenge people the most. That's heart disease, cancer, and neurodegenerative disease. So sweets causes vascular disease, but also the sweat part is the part that also creates improvement in blood vessels, improvement in endorphins, and it's probably the best antidepressant that's ever been invented.
Amen.
And the real unexplained or surprising fact I learned, it reduces cancer recurrence rate by 35%. So anybody who's got a malignancy or a cancer and they're not exercising, they're leaving 35% of their potential recovery on the table.
Yeah.
And so those are the two that you focus on the most, but I wanted to talk a little bit about sleep.
Yes,
And
let's
sleep
do it.
is incredibly important. And now we'll also talk about the fact that it's not only the physical, but the mental health part. But without sleep, we lose the ability to refuel our body, rid our body and our brain of waste products, and store some of the knowledge we've incorporated during the day. And we know that people who have mental health concerns, if they're not getting enough sleep, they're not going to recover particularly well from their mental health issue.
Yeah.
So sleep is really important. And there's so many people with sleep apnea and sleep disorders that I would see in my practice, especially in the last 10 years. It was like an explosion, and people have nowhere to turn because waiting for an appointment with a sleep specialist takes forever.
Yeah.
The workup is forever. And then you hear things like, well, that machine is really terrible and I don't want to do that. And to me, that's a lifesaver if you have sleep apnea. Now, one of the treatments for that is to lose about 50 pounds. But until you can lose your weight, treating with a CPAP machine is important. And if you don't get enough sleep, it's hard to lose weight. It's hard to exercise, and you can't rev up your metabolism properly. So there's this balance between ghrelin and leptin that control our appetite. And if you're not sleeping, you have difficulty controlling that. And for the clients that you manage and work with, if they're not getting sleep, it makes Sarah's job incredibly difficult because there's lots of frustration. And so it's probably one of the things that you focus on when you talk to your clients, and making sure that they lose their excuses for not getting their sleep.
Yeah.
Here's a schedule, set a time. If your room is too hot or too cold and there's something wrong in there, do something about it. I stress a lot about sleep hygiene. And just a few words about that. That's your room is for sleeping and for sex or intimacy. Yeah. Two things only, not for television, not for phones, not for reading political thrillers that are going to keep you up. Get the temperature down, make sure your bed is comfortable, make sure it's dark. If not, wear blinders. And something that's incredibly important is if you're in bed and you're not sleeping in 20 minutes, get out of bed, go to another room, find something to do, listen to some music. You can open a book, but try to avoid opening your phone and just getting out of bed. The reason for that is very interesting. And the fact of the matter is that your brain will associate not sleeping with your bed. So if you're not sleeping and your brain is saying, hey, this is a place we go in at night, but we don't sleep.
Right.
And it reprograms you. So the way to do that is unprogram that, get out of bed, read something, get yourself tired, get back in bed.
Okay, great.
Try and stay on a regular schedule. because your body is used to regular schedule. And in the morning, it's a really good idea to get out of bed and get some sunlight, because that starts revving up your system and getting your circadian rhythm in sync.
Yeah.
So that's my point about sleep. And then stress. Well, everybody's stressed. The post-COVID world made it worse.
Mm-hmm.
We have all kinds of issues. There's political polarization, there's job dissatisfaction, there's bullying everywhere. There's bullying in healthcare. If you don't believe it, it's true. There's bullying at work. There's difficulties getting along with people. There's the COVID polarization. And then there's losses of job, but also loss of career. So many people are having to change careers, like nurses. They want to love their job and they can't anymore. Right. So there's a lot of losses creating stress. So one of the things is avoid stress. Learn how to approach it. Talk to people about what's challenging you. Go for counseling. Our mental health system is overwhelmed and understaffed to take care of it, but figure out some ways of either an accountability partner or talking to Sarah during your therapy session, during your session, but somehow getting it off your chest. Getting into group therapy can be really helpful. But if we carry around that stress, that's another thing that releases cortisol in our body, leads to excess weight, excess inflammatory stuff going on. And that's really hazardous to our health. So the other things one can do on the proactive way is mindfulness, meditation, learning the different techniques that will help overcome that. And exercise is another thing that, as you see things intertwine, that the exercise component of that does relieve stress. So that it's important to know that my Power of Five is interwoven and everything relates to one another. And the last item, and maybe the most important for us in our generation, is sex. Now, my generation knows that sex sells. So that's why Cosmopolitan was such a big magazine back when I was younger, and probably still is. I think demographics change a little bit. So I say sex, but it's socialization, it's connections, it's relationships. And I want to stress the importance of the opposite. The opposite of intimacy is loneliness. And that's a health hazard. Yeah. It's the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day or being overweight. So if someone comes to see you for Burn, Fat, and Feast, and they're lonely, it makes it more difficult to overcome the barriers that they have. So talking about that is important, helping people overcome it. It was a problem before COVID, and it's gotten worse since. Yeah. And what happened is a younger generation never developed the tools. And then some people lost the tools to deal with that socialization part. So I recommend that people work at it, that they make friends, that they talk to their companion and say, let's meet the Smiths down the street and let's go over there and introduce ourselves, because we need friends and we need to be sociable. For men, it's even a more difficult and challenging problem. I know that as a physician, I had 15 friends make appointments to see me every day. They would call patients. and I was able to have that social session with them. And I go home and that was like enough for me. Now, now that I'm retired, it's an act of work, so to speak, to make friends. And because of my research and what I did, I just now call up people and say, I see you in the gym. Why don't we get together and have coffee? One of my best friends that way. I've done that with several other people. And the one thing, I heard this expression the other day, it's not like being at high school and being in the cafeteria and someone's going to make fun of you and laugh. Not a single person has turned me down. Yes. I could have coffee every day of the week, every day of the month with someone that I've met and invited to have coffee. And we have great conversations, and we talk about all kinds of things that get me out of the house and get that socialization going. But there are other ways of doing it too. Joining a club, playing pickleball, finding guys to play golf with, women to play tennis, mahjong, and so forth, or joining a class like a photography class or photography club where you can be with like-minded people. People can volunteer, where they'll meet people, or even take a second job where they'll interact with younger people, because that's an important part too, to stack your generations of people. You don't want to always be the youngest or the oldest in a crowd. You want to kind of be in the middle and share your expertise with two sides.
And these are amazing tips and strategies to make these things happen. And I'll touch on the socialization piece, the sex piece that we're talking about, socialization, connections, relationships. And I'll speak for my generation, or maybe just season of life of, I have 3 kids, 2 teenagers and 11-year-olds. And so as a business owner and a busy mom in a busy season of life, I find that piece can be difficult too, because we as women, I will specifically say, do a really good job of taking care of other people and doing things for other people. And so, I want to learn how to play pickleball, but I haven't made the time to go do it, and I feel like I have to do all the other things before I can do that. And so the socialization part of my wellness, I feel like a lot of times just kind of gets pushed to the back burner. And so I think that some of these strategies of just making it intentional is helpful. I've actually done this in my life recently, where I just have a calendar reminder on my phone of, remember to schedule something with a friend this month, schedule it with a friend, because if we continue to put it on the back burner, then it just never gets done. And I know that I've talked to a lot of women recently in this similar season of life, where like, I don't have time to do, all the fun extra things that we could do, maybe if we had more time in our day. But just making it intentional, it doesn't have to be, hours during your day, but it could just be going to coffee with a friend every Friday or twice a month, just being intentional about those things, because it is that important. I think most of us have realized that, through COVID, of that feeling of loneliness, how important that mental health piece can be.
Agreed, 100%. And in the things that you do with your clients is a lot of scheduling. When you're going to work out, it's going to be 2:00, 4:00. It would be 8:00, 3 days a week. But they have a calendar and they have a schedule, and you'll put, we in our household, we have dinner. It's on my calendar. It's 6:00.
Yeah.
And once a week, my wife and I will go through what's going to be the dinners for the week. So they're scheduled. And then there are the other times too. And then you schedule your socialization part, and you say it's going to be here. Or maybe a little bit different is, we're going to be at soccer, and I know Mrs. Jones is there. And I'm going to make sure that I get next to her and chat with her.
Yes.
And that may be all the socialization you can get for the week, but it's something, it's not nothing. And that may lead to a cup of coffee, or when they're playing soccer, you even walk further away and have your coffee together, where you can do that. You can't give to your kids 24/7, 365 without taking care of yourself. And that's one of my 5. And those 5, they're all important.
Yeah. I love that you just said that, because that's one of the things actually I did this fall. My son rather was playing football. And so there's a huge walking trail all around while he's playing for 2 hours. And I would get together with someone and walk and talk, and we're already there. We're already waiting. And so it wasn't like we had to schedule more time in our day to do something. We just had to use the time we had, and again, be intentional about the time that we had to socialize with others. And I just feel like when we do that, you talked about stress, and stress is another big one. I feel like we kind of push aside or discount, like, oh, we're all stressed. Yeah, I'm just stressed. I'm stressed. And just feel like we need to, quote unquote, deal with it. But if we put stuff like this in place, socialization, like that helps our stress. That helps release some of our stress. We can talk to other people about what's happening in our life. And like you said, it's a compound effect. Then we can sleep better because we're less stressed and we socialize with other people. And so I love that all of these, the power of 5, all those S's are intertwined. And that's the way it really should feel as, wellness in general.
And I put it a little pentagon in my book, in my journal that I have, and I make sure that every day I check them off. I put my calories, my steps, I chart my weight, I do all these different things, but all five of them together, even if you set your alarm clock to get up 5 or 10 minutes earlier, get out of bed, push the coffee button, sit down on the couch and meditate for 5 minutes. Listen to soft music, just something that's part of that. Even if you schedule a phone call, I'm going to call my friend Rita, and we're going to talk about such and such, and your kids will benefit from you taking better care of yourself with that socialization. Mom, why are you watching us do 15 tackles here? Just go for a walk for an hour and a half around the field. You'll be a better mom for it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, could I agree more? This was amazing. Thank you so very much for sharing your wisdom and the power of five with us today. And now, obviously, the power of five is a book. So if you want to learn more, you can certainly find the book, but you also have some other things as well, right? There's a course that you offer.
Sure, I'd love to talk about that on my website, which is powerofthe5life.com. I do have an online course. It's about 5 hours, or if you push the speed a little faster, it's 4 hours and 55 minutes. And it outlines exactly some of the things we talk about with a lot of detail about what people can do. I've written another book called I've Got Some Good News and Some Bad News You're Old, Tales of a Geriatrician. That may be a good holiday gift for people to give as a realistic goal, or a gift, or as a fun gift. But on my website, my wife has written 2 cookbooks, small cookbooks for people. There's a holiday cookbook for Thanksgiving, so people can get healthy recipes that you put together. A few years ago, I wrote a small book called Secrets of Living Longer. Oh, I forgot the name of it. I'm on the spot. That's available for free as well. That are things that I learned from my older patients as they age, and they were great reminders to me about the things we can do to age well. Things we didn't talk about today, but are really important things. Notes on Living Longer is the name of that book.
Okay, perfect. Oh my gosh, so many resources. All right, we will link the website and then all the places that everyone can find you as well. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest. You're on all the places. So
we try.
Yeah, we'll be able to find you for sure. Thank you so very much again. I appreciate you being here, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. It's a pleasure to be here. Good luck. Have a good holiday.